Project for the Innocents began with students, and I want to emphasize that. And I had some students come to me and say, "No, Professor Levinson, can we do something that matters?" And I thought about it and I said, let's find something to do.
So we finally got, it's about a 15-minute pitch to Professor Levinson, all the benefits, all the why it's so great, why we should do it. Worked up the courage to ask her, okay, so do you have time? She says yes. I go to her office, we sit down, and she doesn't interrupt us once. And she just sits there, we finish. And then she's like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting, what does that mean? And then she asked, okay, can you get up and open a file cabinet drawer? So now I'm looking at a file cabinet, I have no idea what I'm doing there. And she says, okay, see there's like it's like divided into two sections, the front and back. And oh, that entire back section is actually innocence work. And I've been collecting this information for years, just waiting for a student to come in and talk about it.
And I checked with these innocence projects around the country, and I found one in Northern California that had a case that they really needed help with. They needed help because the murder happened in Los Angeles. So I said, we'll take that case. And we started investigating the case. That was the case of Obie Anthony. And that was the birth of our Innocence Project, our Project for the Innocents, trying to do something that mattered. It started with 3 students, and now we have each semester 24 students who are involved in the project.
There were a group of students at my school who approached Professor Levinson and asked her if they could do something that really had meaning. And some of my friends were in that group, and I heard that they were doing this interesting case, and I knew that some people were graduating, and so I asked Professor Levinson if I could help on the case also, because they needed new students.
Meeting Professor Levinson, her first question for me when I did meet her was, "Do you want to be a lawyer?" And I didn't want to disappoint, so I said yes. I had never considered law. I barely even knew what that included. We talked a little bit. She said, "Intern for me if you want." And I thought that would be an incredible experience.
Professor Levinson, that I think you guys have already met, she is good friends with my boss, who is also a professor at Loyola Law School. And she asked him, "Can you loan me an investigator that can help us with our first case," because Obie Anthony is Loyola's first case. And so my boss said, "Sure, I'll loan you Deborah Crawford." And so it was that simple.
Being a defense lawyer, I learned, is much harder than being a prosecutor. You know, if you're a prosecutor and you lose a case, oh well, that person didn't go to prison, neither do you, so no big deal. But if you have a client, a flesh and blood client, and you know it's all on the line, for Obie it was all on the line. He was not going to get another chance.
Imagine being stuck in quicksand, here come an individual throwing a rope in the water and pulling you out. That relieving feeling that you know, okay, the rope is in the sand now, I know I'm finna get out. Yeah. And so that's what it was like for me when they came along.
I got a phone call from a friend, Susan Gerard, who was the year after me. He said, "Okay, we won." I was like, "We won what?" "We won Obie." And I was like, "No." So, you know, that's just a mean trick, and you know, she's not that type, but it's like, no, I need to verify this, you know, Google is the first place.
And basically, Obie talked us off the ledge, because I was so nervous I didn't know what to do, and I was anticipating that if we lost, I couldn't even imagine, honestly, because I felt like Obie was one of my buddies now. And so I literally couldn't imagine what we were going to do if we lost.
It still touches my heart and takes me back to sitting in the courtroom that day with Mr. Anthony, sitting there and seeing him, his body just almost went limp with that news. I mean, he was overjoyed, but just so exhausted. The evidentiary hearing lasted for 2 weeks. And so you don't realize that you stay tensed up and keyed up that whole time, but it was like a relief for him, and it was a relief for me too, to realize that all that work was going to pay off. He actually was going to be released. And that was the best feeling I think I've ever had, was to know that.
I don't know, man. It's a big ball emotion. Still today, it's that same type of feeling where you get this. It's like a ball in your pit of your stomach. Like, man, you get. It's almost like, so you put your effort in for the whole year on a project, right? And you saying to yourself, I should get an A on this, right? But you don't know how the teacher is going to grade you, because sometimes he can be real tough on grading papers. And so, but when you finally get that, when you get the paper and that A is on it, it's like, yes, I knew I did a good job. And that's what it was for me. It was like, yes, I knew they did a good job, right? And so there was that whole feeling in you, that relieving feeling. It was like a sense of relief that came over me.
You get so much further by taking what you're given and making the most of it. And people always say, make the most of what you have, but he seriously made the most of what he had, which was barely anything. He read as much as he could. He studied as much as he could. He educated himself. He made sure that when he got released, he was ready to enter the world and to start a life, as opposed to playing catch up for 17 years. And that to me is unbelievable. Someone who doesn't have anger or hatred because of how unfairly he was treated, and I don't think I can think of a single person who was more unfairly treated.
The real pleasure is when you just sitting and having a beer with Obie in a nice place, something you envisioned when he was on the inside and hoped that would actually happen one day. That's the real pleasure for us.
So I probably hear from Obie about every week or two. My fellow Adam Grant, I think, has become his brother. He hears from all the time. I have his cell phone, he has my cell phone, and I consider him a dear friend. It's about sort of realizing that what you do matters, and that's why we love our project. The most important thing I've learned is that each person matters. There are no disposable people. There are no expendable people. We have such a big criminal justice system with millions, 2.7 million people in prison. You almost stop thinking about the individual. What this case taught me and taught my students, every person matters.